And we got to start with what probably was the most impressive performance of this past weekend of NFL football, and that is the 49ers, man. Absolutely trouncing the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. And final score in that one, dude, I mean, it was ridiculous, 42-10 against a Cowboys team that was expected to be one of the powerhouses in the NFC. I mean, I didn't buy into that personally before the season. And Jaden was running his victory laps for 4 weeks. And, I mean, I couldn't be more sick about it. So I can't wait to get him on another podcast episode to talk to him about that. But we're talking about the fucking 49ers because they've been balling out. I mean, they're undefeated right now. They're one of 2 teams that are undefeated. But they're definitely more impressive than the Eagles so far this season. I mean, the Eagles have done their thing. But the Niners have absolutely dominated so far. I mean, CMC has a chance at an MVP case, I think, this year if he keeps doing what he's doing. Brock Purdy looked fantastic against the Dallas Cowboys.
It's Brocktober. It's Brocktober, man. He is absolutely killing it right now. This is no longer he's just in there to not lose games. I mean, he's going out there and winning games. Now, the one thing I'm going to still say about Brock Purdy is he hasn't been in that game where it's like, hey, 2-minute drive, we're tied, you got to go down and get us a field goal, or we're losing by 3, we got to tie this game or win this game now. I haven't seen that yet. So it's tough for me to sit there and say, like, he's one of these upper-tier, upper-echelon quarterbacks until I see that moment. But, I mean, in every game that he hasn't torn his UCL, he's won. So I just got to keep going off of what's there. And, you know, I think he was, like, 17 of 24 or something with 4 touchdowns the other night. I mean, just ridiculously efficient. But also, I mean, some of the throws he was making were incredible as well. And, I mean, yeah, it was the impressive win, but I'm with you, man. I'm off this Cowboys bandwagon. I'm done believing that the Cowboys are going to be that good. And you mentioned it, and I haven't been on an episode with you, so I have to give you your credit where credit's due. And you called the fuck out of the Cardinals beating the Cowboys. I asked for your mortal lock that week, and you said Cardinals money line, and I laughed. Little did I know they were going to kick the shit out of Dallas. So I think that as impressive as that win was, I just don't think this Cowboys team is that good. And you know, I was listening to somebody say, well, he was like, oh, I saw this coming. I think it might have been Nick Wright, where he was like, oh, I saw this coming from a mile away. Arizona beat Dallas by 12, and Arizona lost to San Francisco by 19. That adds up to 31, and they won by 32. So basically that's exactly where that math comes in. But yeah. Dak, I saw the stat. Since Dak signed his contract, he's played in 38 games and he has 34 interceptions.
Oh, bro. Like,
that is abysmal, man. That's almost an interception a game. And if you're getting paid as like a top 5, top 7 quarterback, whatever he is, you got to be producing a little bit more than that. I mean, we're talking about Brock Purdy not going out and losing games. He's putting up crazy stats. Maybe Dak Prescott needs to take one out of his book and just not lose games, because we saw that in the first couple weeks. They didn't need him. They relied on the defense.
Yep.
Now they need him, and he is not performing at all.
No. I mean, he's been horrific, dude. It's like he came into the season and said, I'm not throwing 10 interceptions this year. Okay.
Threw 3.
Yeah, he threw 3 in one game, and it was ugly, dude. Like that overthrow, that was terrible.
That was 10 or 15 yards.
Exactly, dude.
It was, and I think that, you know, we discussed this a little bit, you and I did, about whether or not Dak is that guy, because Jerry Jones keeps saying, oh, he can go out and win a Super Bowl. That's just an owner being caught up in his own cloud, I guess you can say, in his own aurora, where he's just like,
it's Jerry Jones being
he's so oblivious to everything else that's going. It's like you have to look at the landscape of quarterback in this league, and Dak Prescott's not up there with it. Like, I wouldn't even put him like top 15 right now. Maybe top 20, I don't know.
Yeah.
But he is just.
It comes
when
down to
Trayvon Diggs got hurt. When Trayvon Diggs got hurt, you said that it was going to, you know, carry into that game against Cardinals. I didn't think it was. I still thought that on paper they were a really good defense, and their offense was still going to be just as good, you know, with the line that they've got and the playmakers that they've got. But, man, Brandon Cooks has done nothing. I don't even know if he's on the field. I haven't really heard much of Michael Gallup. They're really missing Dalton Schultz, in my opinion. I know Jake Ferguson has some touchdowns, but I think they're really missing Dalton Schultz. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they're getting torched in the air, man.
Yep.
And Bland got hurt last night too. I think it's going to be a rough sledding here for the Cowboys. I still think they're good enough to make the playoffs, but man, this is not what you were looking for if you're a Cowboys fan.
No, but it is what you were looking for if you were a 49ers fan, because not only do you beat the crap out of the other team that was favored in the NFC as one of the top dogs, you prove yourself as the solidified number one in the NFC right now. And let me ask you this, man. I mean, you brought this question up. Do we think that the Niners have a legitimate chance at going undefeated this year? I mean, this team is so good. They've been balling out, and they've got the 10th toughest strength of schedule going forward. But for this team, they're probably favored in every single one of those matchups. And if Brock Purdy can continue to do what he's doing and rely on the production that you're getting from CMC and rely on this defense, which is ranked number 1 on PFF right now, I think this team does have a legitimate shot at going 17-0. What do you think?
I think that they've got I think out of them and the Eagles, as far as the undefeated teams that have a chance, I think it's definitely the 49ers. It's funny that I mentioned that. Circle your calendar for December 3rd, 49ers at Eagles. That might be the only game that they're not favored in. Other than that, the big games that they've got the Bengals and the Ravens, but they're both in San Fran. And then they go on the road to Jacksonville. Obviously, they've still got some of the divisional games, but there's teams like the Browns, the Vikings. Yes, that hurts. The Bucks. At the Seahawks could be tricky. Yeah. They've got the Cardinals again. They've got the Commanders. They've got the Rams. I don't really see much besides the Eagles game. Maybe the Ravens or the Bengals catch them on a bad week in San Fran, but it's at home, so I think that they still got the advantage. That December 3rd game, and that not only could decide whether or not which team goes undefeated the rest of the way, but it also is going to probably decide the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing how this 49ers team keeps on rolling throughout the season. We talked about Brock Purdy. I mean, he was fantastic on Sunday night. And this Kyle Shanahan offense has never needed to rely on the quarterback. I mean, you look at Jimmy G, dude. Like, what Jimmy G, he brought them to the Super Bowl. And I'd argue that Brock Purdy is better than that Jimmy G that took that team to the Super Bowl. So
Jimmy G was much more limited in what he could do compared to Purdy. And Purdy, it's fun. It's so crazy to think about. He's the least highest paid quarterback, starting quarterback in the NFL.
He's making
right
less
now.
than $1 million.
And it's ridiculous. And to be honest, the 49ers are so lucky that this is working out with Purdy, because what they did with the whole Trey Lance situation is awful. That also is another question. Do we see Trey Lance at any time here this year? I don't think we do, but
I mean, in late games,
you got to start asking these questions.
Or not last night, but 2 nights ago on Sunday Night Football. Exactly. You need to start asking these questions, because it's like that seemed like the perfect time to put Trey Lance in. I mean, you're going against your former team, and I know they put in Cooper Rush at some point, but that Trey Lance has the potential. So you knew you were out of that game anyway. So, why not see what Trey Lance has? And they didn't want to go to him. And that surprised me, because of what Jerry Jones said when they acquired Trey Lance. And he kind of alluded to having future plans with Trey Lance as possible QB1. So that could still be in play. I don't think it happens this year. But, I mean, if Jerry Jones has a very short leash, dude. And if
they miss the playoffs, Dax, you can't move forward with him as your quarterback. Like that. I mean, how many more chances are you going to give this guy?
It's ridiculous.
I would say the 49ers have about a 30 to 35% chance to go undefeated. I would put it in that, just because they do have some teams like the Bengals, Ravens, Jags, Eagles on their schedule that could beat them.
Yeah.
But in the crazy, like you're talking about MVP, Brock Purdy is I think 7-1 right now. He's like the 3rd or 4th best odds to win MVP. But we had this conversation. He might not even be the best player on his team.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because you've got Trent Williams, who's the best tackle in the game, Fred Warner, who's the best middle linebacker in the game. Nick Bosa might be the best defensive end. It's up for debate, him and Parsons and Garrett, Watt, just to name a couple.
I mean, you mentioned Bosa, bro. Bosa has not – I mean, he's been good this year. Don't get me wrong.
They haven't needed it.
Yeah, exactly. He only has 2 sacks so far this year. This point last season, he had 6, and he won Defensive Player of the Year. So they don't even need Nick Bosa to step up right now. I mean, he's playing great football either way, but this team is, I mean, you drop off one piece. I will say, if they lose CMC, who has had an injury history, if they lose CMC at some point, they could run into some troubles. But unless that happens,
you still got Elijah Mitchell, who is a veteran back. I'm not saying he's CMC by any means, but you would be depending on Brock Purdy a little bit more, and then we would really start to find out. But they've only had one game that was one possession, and that was against the Rams, and that's because the Rams kicked a field goal as time expired to lose by 7 instead of 10.
Yeah.
Other than that, they've won 30-7, 30-12, 35-16, 42-10. They've scored at least 30 points in every single game, which is incredible to think about.
This 49ers team is balling, and we definitely think that they have a shot at 17-0. So